Scary, true stories from night shifts that will haunt you. Part 4. The Van in the Fields, a Policeman's Nightmare. Mark had worked the graveyard shift as a police officer for several months now, but nothing could prepare him for the night he would never forget. Patrols through the rural areas were often lonely and uneventful, but tonight, something was different. The roads were eerily quiet, and the usual backdrop of crickets and the rustling of leaves seemed to fade into an unsettling silence. His canine partner, Sammy, a German shepherd with a sharp sense of danger, sat in the passenger seat, her ears perked as they drove down the long, deserted road. Mark glanced at his dashboard clock, 2:15 a.m. He'd already driven miles without seeing a single soul. The small towns he patrolled at night were sleepy, peaceful. Too peaceful. He had grown used to the emptiness, the isolation, and yet tonight it felt wrong. He had a gut feeling something was out of place, and it gnawed at him as he scanned the road ahead. Then, in the distance, a white van appeared. It was parked off the side of the road, tucked into a small, overgrown area surrounded by dense crops. The headlights were off, but the van's presence was odd. There was no reason for it to be out here in the middle of nowhere, with no businesses for miles. Mark slowed the car as he approached, his instincts screaming that something was off. As he came closer, the hairs on the back of his neck stood on end. The van's doors were wide open, and no one was around. No one had exited the vehicle, and the silence around it felt suffocating. Sammy growled low in her throat, her nose twitching as she sensed something that Mark couldn't quite put his finger on. Mark parked his patrol car a safe distance away and stepped out, motioning for Sammy to stay close. He approached the van cautiously, every nerve in his body on high alert. The air smelled strange, a mix of must and something fouler, something wrong. As he reached the back of the van, he opened the trunk. A rush of rancid air hit him immediately, and he nearly gagged. He hesitated for a moment, the stench so overpowering that it made his stomach churn. But he forced himself to look inside. His blood ran cold. There were 7 body bags inside, their ends haphazardly pushed together. The sight of the bags, each one bearing feet protruding from the bottom, made Mark's vision blur. His first instinct was to retreat, to call for backup, but Sammy's sudden barking snapped him out of his shock. She was pulling on her leash, her growls now urgent, and Mark's heart pounded as he scanned the area. Something was wrong. He could feel it in his bones. Mark tried to calm Sammy down as he reached for his radio. His hand trembled as he keyed in a call for backup, trying to steady his voice. "This is Officer Mark. I need immediate assistance at..." The radio cut out. Static filled the air, adding to the unsettling tension in the silence. Before Mark could react, he heard a twig snap nearby. Sammy's barking grew frantic, and she broke free from his grip, darting into the thick crops surrounding the van. Mark cursed under his breath and followed, his heart racing. He could hear Sammy's claws skittering on the ground as she ran deeper into the fields. Mark's mind screamed that something was terribly wrong. He called out her name, but the noise of the wind and the rustling crops drowned out his voice. Suddenly, the sound of Sammy's barking stopped. Mark froze in his tracks. The silence was deafening. He stood still, every sense heightened, waiting for the faintest sound. The air was still, thick with the ominous feeling that something was just beyond his reach. Then he heard it. Movement. It was faint at first, like the sound of something, or someone, shifting through the crops around him. Mark's heart pounded in his chest as he gripped his service weapon. His breath came in shallow gasps, each step more cautious than the last. Sammy's absence weighed heavily on him, a gnawing fear that he couldn't shake. The sounds of movement grew louder, circling him. Mark's palms were sweaty as he slowly turned around, scanning every inch of the field. He couldn't see anything, but he knew he wasn't alone. Sammy had been pulled into the unknown, and now he was the one trapped. Then, from behind him, something moved too fast. Strong arms suddenly wrapped around his neck, squeezing the air from his lungs. Mark gasped for breath, his vision blurring as panic surged through him. He fought back, his hands scrambling to break free from the vice-like grip around his throat. Mark's legs buckled beneath him as he struggled, his hand fumbling for his gun, but it was too late. He was choking, the world fading to black around him. His grip on his weapon faltered as he fought to stay conscious. He couldn't breathe, couldn't move, the pressure of the man's hands like steel against his skin. Just as Mark thought he would lose consciousness, he heard Sammy's bark, a sharp, frantic sound that cut through the darkness. In that instant, the man's grip loosened, and Mark's vision cleared just enough to see Sammy barreling toward them. With a vicious snarl, Sammy lunged at the man, her teeth sinking into his leg. Mark gasped for air, his hands desperate to find his gun. As the man screamed in pain, Mark's fingers finally closed around the grip of his weapon. In one swift, panicked motion, he pulled the trigger. The gunshot echoed through the field, followed by the sound of the man's body crumpling to the ground. Sammy released her hold, growling at the fallen figure. Mark staggered back, gasping for breath as he tried to regain his footing. He wasn't sure how much time had passed, but his body felt heavy, drained from the fight. He looked down at Sammy, who was still growling, her fur bristling as she stood guard. Mark staggered to his feet, his mind reeling as he surveyed the scene. The man was on the ground, unmoving, but something wasn't right. He couldn't place it, but there was a coldness in the air that made his skin crawl. He had just killed a man, and yet there was no satisfaction, no sense of relief, only dread. Mark fumbled for his radio again, calling for backup. But there was no response. The field around him was silent once more, the distant hum of his car the only sound. He felt like he was losing his grip on reality. The world felt distant, muffled, as if he were trapped in a nightmare he couldn't wake up from. He looked down at Sammy, who was now standing alert beside him, her eyes scanning the dark field. He knew she could sense something he couldn't. Something was still out there, hidden in the shadows. Mark's hand trembled as he looked down at the body. He couldn't shake the feeling that the nightmare wasn't over, that it had only just begun. When backup finally arrived, the man's body had disappeared. The van was gone too, leaving no trace of the killers who had been lurking in the field. Mark tried to explain, but there was no evidence, no sign of what had truly happened. He couldn't prove anything. He couldn't even remember the exact details of the encounter. As Mark drove back to the station, his hands still trembling on the steering wheel, he couldn't help but feel like he had failed. The van full of bodies, the man he had shot, and now this unsettling emptiness. He had done what he had to do, but something inside him told him this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. Mark couldn't shake the image of the van, the eerie silence, and the feeling that something was watching him from the darkness. The nightmare was far from over, and he had no idea where it would lead next. Throughout this chilling journey, we followed the harrowing experiences of 4 individuals who, unknowingly, find themselves trapped in a web of horror that unravels during the isolated, silent hours of the night. The quiet solitude of their night shifts in seemingly mundane jobs, working at a 24-hour supermarket, a desolate gas station, a lonely 7-Eleven, and a rural police patrol, becomes the backdrop for terrifying encounters that force each of them to confront the unknown, and more importantly, the darkness within. Emily's story begins with a simple task: stocking shelves in a quiet suburban supermarket. But what starts as a mundane evening shifts into an unnerving, spine-chilling encounter when a strange man with bizarre, unsettling features appears, asking for help with a simple grocery item. His cold stare and odd questions ranging from inquiring about her love life to uncomfortably intrusive comments, set the stage for an escalating sense of fear. The tension grows, culminating in a terrifying moment when Emily is followed, trapped in a bathroom stall, and barely escapes with her life. This experience leaves her haunted, forever changing her perception of safety and the vulnerability of working the graveyard shift. Sam's lonely night at the isolated gas station mirrors Emily's unsettling experience in the supermarket. But here, it's the silence that speaks volumes. A lone, strange customer arrives, acting as if in a trance, picking up items only to set them back down again, all while muttering incoherent phrases. His behavior feels off, and Sam can't shake the feeling that something is wrong. Then, the phone rings, and it's the same man, only this time, his voice crackles through the phone line, warning Sam that he's not safe. His cryptic words, "They're coming," echo in Sam's mind, heightening his fear. When the man vanishes without a trace, Sam is left to question his own safety, realizing that something far darker than just an odd customer is lurking in the background. Lily, the young college student working the night shift at the 7-Eleven, experiences a creeping dread when an eccentric customer arrives, acting in a way that seems less like casual shopping and more like a disturbing encounter with a person lost in another reality. After a strange conversation where the man mutters unsettling phrases and stares at the ceiling as if communicating with someone invisible, Lily feels herself become entangled in a web of confusion and terror. The phone rings, and it's him again, this time telling Lily that she is not safe, that they are coming. His ability to track her down without even knowing where she was working fills her with dread. The man's bizarre behavior escalates when he calls her again later that night, leaving her terrified and paranoid. Her shift is no longer about stocking shelves. It's about survival. Finally, Mark, a seasoned police officer, experiences the most visceral terror of them all. On a routine patrol in the dark, empty fields that separate rural towns, Mark and his canine partner Sammy stumble upon a white van that is eerily parked with its doors wide open in a secluded area. The foul stench from the van confirms something sinister, and Mark discovers 7 body bags inside. Sammy's frantic barking leads Mark to a sudden struggle where he is ambushed and nearly choked to death. Just when it seems Mark will succumb, Sammy's intervention forces the attacker to let go, and Mark shoots the man to protect himself. But when backup arrives, the van and its contents are gone without a trace. Mark is left to question what really happened. Had he really been attacked? Or was something more supernatural at play? Across all 4 stories, one chilling theme persists: the inexplicable presence of something or someone that seems to exist outside the boundaries of the normal world. Each character faces an overwhelming sense of unease, an intrusion into their solitude, and a confrontation with something that feels like it shouldn't exist in the world they know. The horrific events unfold not just in the physical spaces where these individuals work, but in the psychological spaces of their minds, where fear takes root and grows. In each case, there is a creeping sense of vulnerability, whether it's Emily's isolated night shift in the supermarket, Sam's lonely hours at the gas station, Lily's alone hours at the 7-Eleven, or Mark's quiet patrol in the fields. The core lesson here is that isolation breeds fear, but also self-reliance. Each of these individuals was forced to confront their worst fears, whether it was the strange, unexplainable man, the eerie phone calls, or the terrifying experience of being physically attacked. These were moments where they had no one to rely on but themselves, and each one was tested to their limits, whether by their wits, their courage, or their sheer will to survive. So, What lessons can we take from these harrowing tales? First, these stories remind us that our deepest fears often arise when we are most vulnerable, when we are alone or isolated. The characters in this story are thrust into situations that challenge not just their physical safety, but their mental and emotional strength. Their ability to act in the face of fear, their courage to confront the unknown, is what allows them to survive even when they don't fully understand what is happening. Here are some of the key lessons to apply in our own lives. Each of the characters in these stories faces moments where their gut instincts tell them something is wrong. Emily senses the man's unsettling gaze. Sam feels the oppressive quiet of the gas station. Lily hears the distorted voice on the phone. And Mark's police instincts scream at him that something isn't right. In life, our instincts often guide us in ways we don't fully understand, but they are valuable tools for navigating the unknown. Trusting your instincts can help you make crucial decisions in moments of uncertainty. All of the characters are tested by adversity, but they demonstrate resilience. They face fear head-on, sometimes physically fighting for their safety, and sometimes by outsmarting those who wish to harm them. The ability to bounce back from adversity and to press forward despite fear and uncertainty is a valuable life lesson. Resilience allows us to weather life's most difficult storms and grow stronger in the process. The supernatural and unexplainable elements in these stories force the characters to confront things beyond their understanding. Whether it's the strange man following Emily, the unexplainable phone calls to Sam, or the mystery of the van in the field, the stories emphasize that fear often arises from the unknown. In real life, we often face situations that seem beyond our control or understanding. Confronting these unknowns with courage, rather than succumbing to fear, can help us take control of our lives, even in the face of uncertainty. Mark's experience in the field shows us how crucial it is to be prepared for the unexpected. His ability to respond quickly to danger, even when caught off guard, was crucial to his survival. Whether in our careers, relationships, or personal lives, being prepared for unforeseen challenges can make the difference between overcoming adversity and succumbing to it. The stories also show us how isolation, whether physical or emotional, can amplify our fears. Each of the characters experiences a heightened sense of vulnerability because they are alone. It serves as a reminder that human connection is vital for our emotional and psychological well-being. Building strong, supportive relationships and fostering a sense of community can help mitigate the sense of isolation and provide a safety net in times of crisis. At the heart of these stories is a powerful message about the human spirit's capacity to face fear, to survive, and to adapt in the face of the unknown. Though the characters each experience terrifying moments, they emerge stronger for having faced those fears head-on. As you reflect on the stories of Emily, Sam, Lily, and Mark, take a moment to consider how you too can embrace these lessons in your own life. Trust your instincts. Be resilient in the face of challenges. Face the unknown with courage. And always be prepared. And above all, remember that isolation, while scary, doesn't have to define you. Reach out, connect, and find strength in the support of others. If you've enjoyed this chilling journey and want to hear more stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue to create content that keeps you hooked and coming back for more. Stay tuned for even more thrilling stories in the future.